AI isn't useful. Oh wait, AI is useful. Oh wait, am I useful? Uh,
What
Turns
is
out yes.
useful? Yeah.
Yeah, what is useful? Do I need to become a goat farmer? Um,
That's
what's my exit plan?
yeah. To be honest, I've had the same.
But you just said buying a car for 50K and you lose 5K. No, no, you don't. You lost 50K once you bought it. Um, if you can retrieve some money from it back, maybe. But you lost 50K. You didn't lose 5K at the day, which is a very long-winded way of saying uh, don't build a prototype until you have a customer you can show it to, and don't and competition doesn't matter because there's going to be competition.
So welcome to the Unheard-Of community podcast. This is the second episode with me, Slavi, the host, and here is Max. Welcome, Max.
Hi. You invited me on, so I had like a little identity crisis of okay, what am I supposed to even talk about, or like what I should I even highlight? And then you said like I'm trying to interview like lots of different people of different kinds of walks of life and creating like a community of sorts where you're just talking to people whether they be extraordinary or normal. And I'm like, okay, well, I can at least consider myself to be somewhat normal, so I suppose I should join you. uh, it's yeah, it's quite interesting because like I'm very not unique, but also I'm just trying to figure out life one step at a time. And like I've always tried to do that, and I've always tried to stumble forward. I just like I kind of grew up in the Netherlands. I started to like script when I was like 8 or something, which is, I guess, a bit early, but not extraordinary or anything. You hear that about other people as well. I started more so programming when I was 10. And I just like, I was terrible at school, but I was completely focused on like my free time, trying to learn how to program, tried to be a gamer. I was terrible at that. But yeah, I was just trying to like figure out who I was and trying to survive. And it was also like because I suppose I was, I think 12 or something when my dad went like bankrupt, which um he also had some personal money involved, so he went like personally bankrupt, which was kind of made it a little bit more difficult to like survive economically. And a small year later, my parents got divorced, so it's like I've had some punches thrown at me, but I suppose other people have it better or worse than me. But it did put me into a kind of like survival mode, which I spent like a good part of my life in, being like, am I okay? Am I good enough? Can I survive? Can I get to through to the next month? How can I like be who I want to be? So I just tried a lot of stuff, essentially trying to figure out what I wanted to do. From when I was 10, I started basically, I learned myself Java to create like RuneScape private servers. So that includes like a backend and a front end. I also had to like figure out, okay, how do I host even something like this? So I had to like learn, okay, how do I put up a server? What does that even mean? From there, I just like kept finding like challenges and trying to like overcome them. So at a certain point, I did that for a couple of years. The most successful one was about roughly like 100 concurrent users, which is like not a lot, but I was also like probably like 14, 15, maybe a bit early, I don't know, roughly at that time. So it was quite interesting to have people play something that I made, which was like, in some sense, like, okay, I've created some success. How do I even like, what do I do with this? I also like ended up learning PHP, HTML, CSS, JavaScript to create forums and create the high scores. just to like support that, we ended up we started on a Windows server, but due to our budgetary constraints of being teens, we had to like switch from a Windows server to Linux. So I had to learn Linux just out of sheer necessity. And I kind of like got bored of the whole RuneScape private server thing. I felt like there wasn't much more I'd want to achieve there, so I kind of like um, stepped away from that. But the one of the co-owners, quote unquote co-owners, meant nothing. But one of the guys that I was doing that together with. So we kind of the server that I mentioned, we had like a I was the lead developer, and we had like a couple of people that were working like part time in the free time together to like achieve that. But so one of the guy that was like financing was like a couple of years older than me. He had like a landscaping business, but he also wanted to like get into game development. And I was like, okay, that sounds kind of interesting. That we should try that. So we ended up doing that after that, trying to make a startup of like the mobile market was pretty hot, so I tried to like latch onto that, try to create something that someone wanted to play. They were rather simple, like clicker games. I suppose I just trying to throw things at the wall. But somebody said to me years later, "You were trying to dig, but you should have sold the shovel." Which I was like, "Yeah, actually, that's kind of true. I should have sold my game engine or like the development pipeline that I had. That was quite efficient and it worked quite well. Just the outcomes of it didn't produce anything. So I was like, okay, that doesn't work. And then we tried to be like, okay, well, our end goal is making an MMO, but apparently mobile games aren't working. So how can we get money? And then we were like, okay, enterprise has a lot of money. Let's go try and make anything enterprisey that we could sell to somebody. We ended up trying to make an amalgamation with like a lot of different things, and we just couldn't find any customers because we were an entirely impossible. Way too young. We didn't have any business sense, so we were just trying a building and hope people would come. They didn't because we didn't um, we didn't have like the knowledge that I have right now. If I had hindsight being 2020, I would have probably been able to like easily find customers and like create like something of value that they buy. But yeah, I didn't know that at the time. I was trying to try things and see like, okay, what am I gonna do? Um, Meanwhile, at school, I was a terrible student. Much later on, I learned that I had like a disability for learning, and I'm still kind of in a medical track to like figure out, okay, how do I even I know what's like right, what I'm supposed to do, but how do I actually make sure that I actually do it and maintain that? But that's probably going to be a lifelong struggle. Regardless, I was a terrible student. If I found something novel at school, I'd easily ace it. But if I couldn't find anything novel about it, I just couldn't. Um, so I was just mainly focused on, okay, well, what else do I want to do? I was failing through, uh, I guess you'd call it high school. In the Netherlands, it's called a VMBO. So it's preparing you for, um, it depends, but it can prepare you for vocational school or
University?
what you call college or university. It kind
Mm.
of it doesn't quite map, but roughly those are the paths you could go to. And I was, as I said, a terrible student. So I tried to figure out, okay, what do I want to do? What's in my immediate environment that could at least get me close to what I wanted to do. So in high school, I figured out, okay, if I actually wanted to get into IT, the only option I have currently that's close by to what I currently can achieve academically, and that would be a vocational school for like IT. which was more like the sysadmin side of things. So I somehow stumbled my way through to get high enough to get through high school and graduate high school, and started going to a vocational school for IT to try to become a sysadmin, considering that was the only option I had at the academic level in my neighborhood. That sounded like, okay, that's way more close than doing anything else, because I liked tech. I liked helping people with tech. I found that to be interesting and novel and exciting to me. So I was trying to approximate getting close to it, and trying to be like, okay, well, fall forward long enough, I'll go up. But yeah, that didn't go quite that well. I ended up doing like a couple of internships during the vocational program. One of which was going to Finland. There was like a computer repair shop, roughly, and I went there, and I went there, and the idea was like, okay, you refurbish like a couple of computers a day. I was like, okay, yeah, but this is so inefficient. I just can't. I can't do this. It's like I can do this um without like being awake. I could just probably do this in my sleep, but it's so inefficient. So I was like, hey, I got like a couple of ideas. I think we could do this better. So I was there. There were like two or three other guys that they would call cycle, and we were just doing like a couple of computers per person. So I was like in zombie mode doing that. So I had like a lot of time, and I focused on like, okay, what do I actually want to make? How would that look? And like, what would be efficient for my current like goals, and for like the business, etc., etc. Mainly focused on, okay, I can make the tech way more efficient, and I was like, I'm gonna like try some programming and stuff, and I kind of kept at it. I had like a very weird amalgamation of. I figured out like, because I've been playing with tech on and off. I'm always playing with tech in various ways. So I was like, okay, I know FTP exists. I know there's something called pre-boot, which means the computer is started, but it's not booted to an operating system. I know that exists. I know there's like programs that operate in that space. I know I can program. Makes sense? So I spent like about a month just doing like a couple of computers a day, and uh, in the meantime, I was trying to like develop something that would make sense. So it ended up being um, a computer would like boot up. It would go to the DHCP server that would go to my server, which would provide some sort of boot menu. And this was all kind of roughly messily automated. So what I ended up doing and creating, and after discussing, I got a couple of hardware things that would actually make it work and scale a bit more. Was I'd take about 100 computers or laptops or what have you. I'd connect it to my system. They'd test the hardware, so it's refurbishing. So you want to make sure the hardware is good. Usually, if I get a batch of 100, there was like 90 to 95. I didn't have to do anything. They were like in pristine condition. So you had like 5 to 10 that you actually have to like handle. Of like, okay, can I make anything out of this? Can I make like a couple more working? And in the meantime, all those machines would get tested, and depending on if the tests were good, and depending on the hardware, they would get loaded with an image, either Windows or Linux, depending on like the specs. And this was like an amalgamation of TFTP boot, DHCP, PHP. I made like a very weird micro framework for PHP. That was terrible, but it worked. Um, I made some kind of like templating system for IPXE, which is like a thing that helps you create boot menus, which I could create on the fly depending on like the situation and etc. I ended up like spending about a month figuring that all out. And once I got it working, we went from like so we had like it kind of depends on the day, but at maximum we had like 5 people trying to do that. So that would be like at maximum that would be 5 people times uh, 20, 25 computers and 8 hours per person. I ended up getting that down to spending about 2 hours a day just handling the actual hardware and just like the system, etc. And I was able to do in those 2 hours of effort, I was able to do about 100 computers. So I'd say that that was a decent improvement, both for me because I had to like do way less work, but also for the business. They had like an issue even getting enough computers or selling them. So I kind of like locally maximized what we even could like put through the system, I guess. Um, so I had like 6 hours to do anything I wanted. I ended up going to Reddit because that's kind of what I had to do something. I was watching YouTube. I was reading on Reddit for some reason. I figured out Test 3MP, which was like a multiplayer fork of Open Morrowind, and Open Morrowind was a open source engine for Morrowind, which is the Yellow Scrolls Morrowind by Bethesda. And I somehow got like involved in that community and ended up contributing a little bit to the core, which was C++, I think. Yeah, C++, some documentation, but they also had server modules which were written on top of C++ in Lua. So they integrated those. That's yeah. So every server could like have their own functionality, and the most popular server, the guy that owned it, was kind of like yeah, no, I don't want to share my modules. So mainly as kind of like a joke, we started a collective called uh, TIS3MP FOSS, so free open source software, as kind of as a LARP of being like, okay, well, if you're not gonna provide your server modules, we'll just make stuff for free for the community. So I was kind of part of that for a bit. I kind of helped the core code. I did some documentation for the core product, quote unquote. It's just a game that a couple of people did in their spare time, but I contributed to that. I contributed to just 3MP. We did like a couple of interesting projects, one of which was I still don't know. I'd have to ask. I can probably figure out. But somebody needed a height map of the game. The both the original engine and the open source implementation didn't have any knowledge of height. So there were objects in the game, but nobody knew. Okay, what's like the normal walking height? And somebody needed that for something. I honestly don't know anymore. So we were trying to like again throw things at the wall. It was quite interesting, and we were like, okay, what's like something that we could try, and we decided like, okay, we could raycast objects to the ground. Which was just like, okay, we spawn objects all over the map and we just let them fall and figure out where they land, and that would be at least like a point where we know the height. We tried to do that. We couldn't get it to work in any sufficiently reasonable time, so we had to abandon that. That just wasn't workable. So we were like, okay, well, we still do want a height map. How can we do something that's in a way more efficient or like more time efficient? As in, we want the height map yesterday, but how close can we get to that? Um, so we were like, okay, well, players walk around. They have a height. Why don't we like? record that. And then I was like, yeah, okay, sure. But the average server had like 5 players. What's that gonna do? That's not gonna map anything, you know. Um, so it's like so we somehow stumbled on, okay, well, if you know the height of the player and the position on the map, we could show that. So you could um, we kind of like communally created a live map, which would be able to show where a player on the server is and what their name is. So it was just like a Google Maps kind of thing, which was also already like a little bit of a struggle because we couldn't find like a good quality map uh, to create tiles for like the Google Maps esque website thingy. So what we ended up doing was looking for the best quality we could find. Because we wanted to have like the Google Maps Zoom kind of dealio, despite it being on the server. So we found it like the best quality map we could of the game. Then we tried to make tiles. We couldn't. Um, to keep like high quality, we had to figure out um, like how can we keep high quality but have like a couple of zoom levels, because if you zoom in the quality gets worse, because you have a source asset and that has just specific amount of detail. If you zoom in on that, it gets worse. So how can we try to keep and maintain quality that ends up meaning you have to have everything loaded for all zoom levels, and then you can just like try to keep as much quality as we can. So we had to find somebody who was willing and able to run that. So we kind of hassled some guy being like, hey, do you have a server? And he was, we do have a server at work that might work. Um, that had like 128 gigs of RAM. We were like, surely that's gonna work. It's that should be enough. It wasn't. We had to find another guy, and he was like, yeah, it's a server for work, but I think I can like lend it for like a day if you don't talk about it. And it had 256 gigs, and the whole process ended up being 180 gigs, which I found quite amusing to spend that much resources on something so silly. But yeah, we ended up creating it and having a additional a plugin that was just like called Height Map. And we're like, okay, you can use Live Map, totally free. That we don't track anything. You can additionally install Height Map, which would send player coordinates to our server, and that ended up being more annoying than I thought. I was like, okay, there's only like a couple of servers, but quite a few servers installed their plugins, so we had to handle like a couple of thousand precisions like per second, and we had to like figure out, okay, how can we do that like cheaply that works and merge things, and how do we decide which height map point is like ruling, and so I had to like had to create like a rating system for that, and this is all just for like a hobby project, but it was quite fun to like figure out stuff like that. So it's like really exciting and in some ways a bit novel. Um, but yeah, I was just like doing that during my internship and like a little bit after that. Let me see. After that, I there was like a new track at a different school that was actually software development. So I was like, okay, no, I'm still doing like the sysadmin thing. Let me actually switch to like software development. That's close to what I wanted to do. So I ended up switching there, and um, yeah, then I went to another internship for like a local website place, and ended up enjoying it way more than school. So I can switch to doing that like 4 days a week and going Monday to school. And I ended up being like, okay, the school thing, it's just not working out right now. So I just dropped out and kept working there. And that's kind of how I like officially like got into the industry. Um, I filled like a couple of attempts on my own, and I tried to do all kinds of things, and I ended up just like walking in with an internship, and they liked me enough, and I was apparently good enough to stick around. I ended staying there for a couple of years. In the background, I was always trying to do different and weird things, and trying to learn languages and just keep learning about weird stuff, creating my own programming language, creating compilers, being a package maintainer on the AUR and cross compile. I ended up my current computer is way over spec just for the reason that at some point I was cross compiling some package for different Linux distros. It's all I went. I've I've been always like all over the place and trying to like grasp at anything that I find interesting. And I stayed there for like a while. Tried to do things at the same time. I ended up quitting there simply because the penultimate thing that I did there was a syncing system for web shops. So we had like I think a couple of hundred suppliers, and that culminated in about a couple million articles and I think like was it a couple million? I think it's 1 or 2 million articles, and so we had like 30 million variants, which we sourced from like a decent amount of suppliers, and that went into our system, but that needed to be pushed out to all those web shops, which were like a couple of different platforms. I think we were targeting WooCommerce, Shopify, Shopware. Essentially, because we were
Fails you've had, but more like wins, because from every one of these places that you kind of call quitting, even though you have worked there for quite a few months at a few of these spots, you've met new people, you've learned new lessons, you've worked on different stuff, and I'd say that all of this is teaching you something. And a win is not necessarily a win in and of itself, but more like a lot of hidden fails. So I guess you've just learned, you could call it that way.
yeah.
What I think you said that you started at the age of 10, right? With coding?
Yeah, actual proper programming. So my first
Yeah.
actual language was Java. That was when I was 10. Yeah.
So how old are you right now?
I'm currently 31.
So this means 21 years of doing technology. That's like awesome. Imagine.
Uh,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I started quite young, so I'm still quite young, but I've done a lot despite me being young, I guess.
I think we actually share quite similar of a journey, even though I'm almost 18. I'm currently now 17 in a few months. And I started at 13, and it was quite interesting because I didn't know that I really wanted to do something with my life before just playing games. And I had this time where, for example, Fortnite was booming, and I had been playing this game for 4 years straight. Like, is it like 3.6 thousand hours that I currently have in it? But I've uninstalled almost all games. I only have like Valorant right now, because it's good to like rest off at days that you have done work, or that the for example the previous or the next day would be a work day. And it's never bad to think about relaxation, because you're going to burn out quite quickly. That's what I realized after so many years. What happened in my case was that I started young, and because my father's from the army, a friend of, not also a friend, but also a colleague of his, said that him and his brother, who's also another colleague in the army with my father, said that they had started learning at this thing called Soft Uni, and that's basically a software university, but it's not a real university. Like they have a big, is it called like a conference or like a big building in our capital, Sofia, and a lot of the early like seminars, lectures, and all of that was actually being made in person. But you also had the remote option, but mainly it was, I think, in person, because all of these people wanted to see like their ambitious lectures in person, I would say, and have them as closer connections. Because I currently don't have quite a few of the lectures as connections and only as in messages, and that's probably worse. But I just went there for the knowledge. Like I was still 13, right? I didn't even know what this would give me, and at the time I was just thinking about only playing games and maybe waiting for the summer so that I can play even more games, like get 6 plus hours more. And as I started, there had been I think four courses, we could call it that way. Each one was lasting for 3 to 4 months, relatively in that time frame. And just imagine what my how do I say, my week looked like. I come back from school at about 1 p.m. or 2, and then I have to have lunch. Then I do my homework for like a few hours because it was worse back then as it is now in 11th grade. And then I have like only 1 hour of resting until I have to do a 4 hour lecture where I have to learn JavaScript because I took the JavaScript part for 2 years. And that was like, for example, Monday. Then Tuesday I'm like, oh, that's like a free day off. I'm probably going to rest. Nope, I had tasks to do. I had to work on quizzes. I had to do other tasks and just learn from yesterday because it was not easy to learn on the same day. Like I would literally just start like sleeping on the chair because it was so exhausting. Like at times you wouldn't even see me like looking at the screen because it's probably like Friday night and I have to like sit on the PC for 4 hours more, and I'm like, I really want to play Fortnite. Why do I have to do this? But after a few weeks, it started getting a little bit nicer because I got used to it, and it was pretty rough. Like I didn't know that a programming language could be that hard to learn in the start, and my father actually had to start learning with me, and he's from a whole separate generation, and imagine how hard it was for him to start studying with me to help me. But he did manage to help me, but up until a certain point. Then I had to do it all myself, and that was probably from the second to the fourth course. And this means that I've already like finished the 2 years. And those two brothers that I mentioned from where they told my father, yeah, your child should try that out, they couldn't manage to finish it. So they're still at the army. They're still at their old jobs. So one actually managed to become a software engineer, but the other hasn't, which is nice, which is a big improvement. I'm very happy for him. He even offered that I should go on like their company and seek some kind of approval before getting an internship or even a junior position as a someone that was referred. You can get not with the internship but like a higher position. Not that a junior position is the best art, but still, for someone that doesn't have experience. And
Yeah, that's sorry to interject, but I've always had like struggle with like what's seniority, what's do these level actually matter? Because yeah, junior is can just be as valuable or sometimes even more than a senior, and like you're just trying to do the thing that needs to be done, and
yeah.
the only thing seniority means you failed more, you had more time to fail. So supposedly you have more battle scars. That's the only difference recently that I've recently could find about. So yeah, but continue.
I was going to ask you what made you start programming. Like in my case, it's that I got questioned by my father. Do you want to like start this to your program at this software university thing? And I'm like, accept it. But what was your case of starting out?
um, well, a couple of things. I think I wasn't very social, so programming you to a certain level you can program solo. So that's one angle. Another angle would be just like I really found like the just you just have a computer in front of you and you just speak to it, and if something doesn't work, that just means you did it wrong. There's nothing else about it. It's just determinism. I've very different views now about determinism, but at that time I was like, it's just a deterministic dumb piece of stuff that does math, and I don't even know the math, but if I give it the right instruction, I get the right result. So in that sense, I also found it like, I don't know, quite novel. It's also as you said, like game development. It's very common. That's also the reason why I started those RuneScape private servers. I was playing a lot of them, and I was like, I don't like any of them. I want to make one that I like. So in that sense, that's also a bit. It's a mixture of things, and I just like it. It hit my dopamine centers in the sense that I like doing it, and especially once like I had like a server that people actually played. I was like, "Why it's easy." It's like I think I couldn't even finish vocational school. I couldn't even do math. I just like I created a game engine, but I don't understand. Well, I'm a little bit of like applied math, but I didn't understand math. I created a game engine. So like, do we really? We have these lists for functions and or like roles, I'd say, and we think we have to like meet or approximately uh, at least meet what the requirements are, and from both sides, it's just it's a circus of nothingness. It doesn't add anything. Generally speaking, I've hired like a couple of people. I'm no hiring expert. Uh, I'm not a serial like job hopper or anything. I just most of my roles were just like I've done like a handshake and we seem to like fit and that worked out best. Both me getting hired, but also hiring other people. It's I see so many things and I'm as like you got this recruiter saying or like a company saying like we can't find good people. I'm like, what do you mean you can't find good people? I can find good people. Like I can find like three people that would fit. Like am I that special? No, I'm not. You're just focusing on the wrong things.
Yeah.
It's like um what because I for some reason I mentor people by happenstance. I don't know how it happens. I just do. Um, Supposedly it's just trying to give back because I didn't ever have like a mentor, but depending on like the person. So like I had like this kid who had like a little bit of like a rough story. He's from like India and he's trying to figure out, okay, I want to get to into tech, but I don't have like a computer or whatever. But I have some family stuff and making like economically difficult. I was like, he's like, how do I get clients? I'm like, well, it's easy. No, actually, he started with like, okay, yeah, I can program, but how do I get money? I'm like, well, you get money from people. Yeah, okay, how do I get to people? It's like you approach them. That you approach them, and then you ask what they need, and then you find problems you think you can solve, and then that provides value to them, and in trade for that value, you get money. It's really quite fundamentally simple, and in that whole story, I didn't mention tech. Um, so tech does matter in some ways, but in a lot of ways, we try to pretend that we're special in our industry, but we're not. If if you can if you can find like general advice for like another industry, it usually works in our industry as well. Not always. There's definitely companies that are very strict in what they want and what they. So, for example, lead code. I could probably grant lead code. I've looked at it. I was like, I don't really enjoy this because it's just doing stuff that has no point for me. It has to have. I like learning. Don't get me wrong, but I felt like I'm just learning something that I probably won't use. If I need it, I'll just learn it. But you do have companies that are quite strict with like, okay, we want to do a system design session. We want you to have do like a couple of lead code quizzes, which I'm like,
Algorithms, yeah, some stuff like that.
yeah, algorithms and DSA, which like yes, please do learn it, but it in the hiring process it feels like useless trivia. Like okay, I need to design a system for I don't. It kind of depends on like who you are interviewing with or whatever. But for example, if you go to a Fang or Mango or whatever we call it nowadays, and they say like, okay, design. uh, um, X at world scale. Nobody does that. um, if you have to execute on world scale, that's a team effort. You have to be able to be okay with being a small part in a bigger system, and you have to be able to reason about your little part in a big system. That's true, but you don't create a Google alone. So it's like, why are we designing systems for worldwide whilst we never actually have to do that in practice? Um, so it feels kind of, it feels kind of like a, yeah, part of my French, but like a little bit of a circus of like we're focusing on the wrong things usually. uh, if one can find like better things, then I'll just talk to you and I think you can do it. If you find a better method than that, please tell me, because I've not been able to figure that out. I'm like, I think you can do the job. I think you fit into the team. Let's try that. But it's quite hard because it's a gamble from both sides. But how do you become likable? You help people selflessly. I've had people just come up to me and be like, "Hey, well, exactly this. Like, you approach me and you're like, you're in the server." I'm like, "Okay, man, what do you need? Can I help you? But how can I help you the best?" And that's just, uh,
You
it's
don't
not
view
about me.
it. Yeah, then you don't view it.
It's just like, okay, how can I help you? And I was like trying to figure out, okay, how can I help you best, and what does that mean? And to the people who are listening, how can I help them best through what we're doing right now? And I'm quite unsure. And I know a great many things about nothing. It's yeah. So, but we do. We shouldn't stop ourselves from doing things we don't know about, because staying in a comfortable zone is not how you grow. If you, it also depends. Do you want to grow? We can define our. We do have to deal with the environment. That's true, but we can also um, define and create what our life should be. And it's really hard to figure out what you do want that to be. And I have an idea of where I want to go, but also changes, and I change my mind on it. And um, as my life so far has shown, it's show up and try things, and some things just work. You get lucky, and that's it. Which is quite unfair.
I'm
Which,
literally
yeah,
the
I know.
same. I've literally like tried like quite a few of these like apps. I wanted to go into game dev, wanted to do like some software, wanted to do what I started with web development, and some of them worked out. But for like 2 years and a few months, I've only earned like $1,000 max out of what I really like, also doing tech. But we have to think about it. Do we really like the coding side of things, or do we like the idea of solving problems? Because I started to like more of the idea of finding this problem and solving it. And the actual coding part, I wouldn't say that I'm really obsessed with it. I would say that I'm kind of the opposite nowadays. I kind of hate that I'll have to like think of some way to use, for example, objects or classes or all of these like files and have these like code bases. Like I I feel like I will be better at the project management space and like mostly communications nowadays, because that's kind of like what I've been trying to develop more. For example, with this podcast, because usually I was also quite is it called asocial, where you're not social at all with others, and it was both in school and both at my football like training sessions. And that's made me also kind of get more good at the actual coding side of things and getting used to having problems on my table and actually getting those resolved. But after a lot of time, I've kind of gotten to the point that I would most likely get a job if I continue like this. But you probably see all of this like hype of AI is probably going to replace your job and all of these things. And when you think about it, literally hearing, for example, my father say, all the seniors would like, get, left, and AI will replace the juniors, and
Navigate that because, as you say, for a long while, I was like, I'm good at coding. That's what I am. That's what I do, and at a certain point, you realize, yes, okay, that's something that I technically do, but that's not important. As in, like, yeah, sure, okay, I need to know the concepts. If I see syntax, I need to roughly quickly be able to understand what that means. But as in writing the code itself, because of all of those experience that I do have, isn't important anymore due to AI. So I had an identity crisis of, okay, am I gonna stay in this industry or not? Because I really like coding. I liked coding because it gives me hard problems to think about. And I really like that. That was one of the things I was like, oh, it's a difficult. Oh, yes, that's exactly what I want. I want challenge. I want novelty. I want to not know something and just like crack my brain and throw myself at it and figure it out. And that for coding was like gone. So okay, that was my first identity crisis, being like, okay, I can't, okay, I can't, that's not feasible anymore. That's, our industry has changed, and I need to deal with that. So it's like, okay, well, I need to figure out this AI thing because everybody has been talking about it. I've been behind because I was like, okay, it's not useful, but apparently it is. So I need to learn this. Uh, which meant that, okay, I need to learn, okay, what are the models, what should I use, how can I use it. One of the things I was leaning on heavily for quite a while was GitHub Copilot, because of their model, which they recently have changed. But effectively, I had, if I were able to accept that I didn't have the best frontier models, I had infinite tokens. So it's like, yeah, okay, sure, you have better models, but can you prompt as much as I can? Because I'm pretty sure you can't. But they recently changed that, so I had to figure out what I was going to do next. But yeah, I've gone through like what everybody's been going through at my experience level, being like, uh, we hope to, at least what I'm trying to do now is I do still like the salary path because I can actually like dig in my teeth for a while at a company. It's just, okay, how long can you um, keep me entertained? How long can you provide me challenge? And if there's no challenge anymore, I know I should extricate myself because I'm not useful anymore to that company. um, and that's not hard feelings at either side. I'm being useful for the period that I am, and I provide way more value than I cost. So, which people find like really hard to wrap their heads around, because sometimes I've had it happen at 7 interview rounds for a job. I'm like, what? It took months. I'm like, I just want a job. I want to just do things. Why do I have to
go through
go
all of
through these
this.
hoops?
Yeah.
And ultimately, it meant nothing for either side. It's a waste of time, honestly. Um, there's some exceptions, of course. If It really depends on what you want to have as a company, like what talent you want. And for you, like, what kind of job do you want? Do you just want to uh, have a use and solve problems? That doesn't need to be at a Netflix or a Meta or whatever. You just, if you can make enough to be able to survive and thrive maybe a little bit, that's usually okay enough for most people. Um, but that's just a salary path. You don't have to do that. The guy from India that I mentioned, he just needed to figure out how to sell. He needed to figure out how to sell, and he's been doing that. And uh, my original advice didn't fully work, but he figured out from my advice what would work, and He's working on Fiverr. I tried Fiverr. I can't get a job there. He did. He's 16. I don't know. But my advice made him realize things that actually clicked, and he's got like several jobs on the go. He's getting paid. He's just his own boss. I'll probably have to mention to him that he probably has to figure out like his taxes if he hits that point. But I think he's still under that limit. But he just figured it out. He's 16. He's his own boss. He's making money, decent money for India, I'd say. Or you have this other person who's like was a Silicon Valley person who was like, I just want to fire. I just want to escape the rat race. And I was like, okay, um, is that truly what you want right now? Knowing that probably is not the best to chase after. But okay, if you really truly want to do that, what's the fastest path to do that? Um, and I don't think he fully has comprehended what actually is the fastest path yet. I'm still working on it, but I think he's getting closer. I think I sound very delusional to him, but it's quite interesting because um, he has like a specific number he wants to reach to, and I'd like to explain. Okay, well, if you want to reach that number, you need to reach those numbers in another place. Um, but say for sake of argument, if you want to make $1 million, how fast could you do that?
I think that a lot of people they start like calculating percentage of how much outgrow with every year, but you never know. Like you probably know Cursor, right? That company.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally, I think they hit $1 billion in annual revenue. I'm not even sure how many like months ago, and that's like awesome. Man, it I think it happened from like 1 million ARR to 1 billion ARR in a year. So you cannot
Mhm.
predict that, but that from for example your first year because you hit $1 million like dollars in your annual recurring revenue that you'd hit $1 billion the next year, but it did happen. So like all of these calculations and thoughts we have, they're not really they probably wouldn't be the what the reality will give you. The second thing I'd kind of mention here is that we should try to to work on the things we can change and control and can improve every day, and just accept the others we can't. Like for example, what has happened to us, um, like our in the past, of course, what has happened to our families, and also the fact that our families are the people that we know are these like specific people and not others. We must accept that. But for example, our friends, we can choose them. We can make that decision. So it always matters what we can do. And for example, I kind of also want to. I don't even want to start the rat race. That's why I'm kind of starting this podcast. I want to like help other people get heard, help other people get seen, but also help myself. Also, something very important is a lot of people want to become rich and they think of rich as for example becoming a millionaire, but the harder part is retaining that income. How would you start investing your money so that it doesn't fade away from all of these like shiny things you could buy, because normally when you have like more financial income, more financial gains, you tend to buy like more expensive stuff that you for example don't really need. And if you're like, yeah, I do have a lot, so let me just experience what actual life is, not that it really changes your life, and that is shrinking a lot of your budget, and the business is kind of losing off of that. For example, buying a brand new car even though you don't almost drive at all is going to lose you a lot of percentage from its price in literally the moment you buy it. If it's for $50,000, you essentially lose $5,000 the moment you buy it because you've already been the first one to remove the blankets and sit in it. And there's these bad financial decisions that kind of rule our lives, I'd say. Not only financial decisions, but every decision for your life. And I am kind of I think blessed to have these like family problems in my life, so that I have started to think of life more seriously at a younger age. And I really hope it would come back in gains.
Well, I asked the question, and between when you said it to now, I probably could have made a couple of million.
Yeah.
Technically, I could have. This money is very weird. As in, if you provide value, um, you can get money for it. Some people think money is hard, but if you know the shape and the exact value you have to provide, money is an afterthought. So, which is kind of hard and easy at the same time because I could solve my money problems for the rest of my life. Why do I not do that? Because it would make life too easy for me. Um, that there's a certain amount of struggle from not having enough money, and that's more interesting than having too
More than
much money.
enough. Yeah, more than enough money.
Yeah,
And
well, there's no enough because I can always figure out how to spend money more, apparently. So if you don't want to start a charity because you're like, okay, I don't want to do that, VC money is pretty easy, but all money is pretty easy as long as you know what shape and size of value you want to provide. How do you figure that out? Well, you find somebody and figure out what shape and value they need, because if we're trying to create value and get money for the value that we are creating. Um, you don't know that until you talk to the customer, and the customer often doesn't even know what they need. So you also have to make aware what problem they have, um, what could solve it, and why is your product. So in that series, uh, that doesn't matter if you have competition. If people are already aware of the of the problem, yes, nice. Okay, I don't have to explain what the problem is at all. I just have to explain why my product might be more useful than the current option they have. Uh, so that, in a sense, makes it easier because if you're trying to do something actually novel or something that nobody else has done, you have to first create a market for it, which is way harder than just entering a market that has competition. Sure, okay, competition isn't great, but it's also useful. Um, you should learn from your competition. You should work with your competition, but you should also beat your competition in various ways. Also, you can say like, okay, I've found something that has no competition. Do you know how fast you get competition? Once you figure out something that works that nobody else has, you get copycats. Um, so, in a sense, most markets have competition. If they don't yet, because the market doesn't exist, they'll soon have somebody else trying it as well. So competition is inevitable. Competition is also useful. You can learn from your competition. You can work with your competition, and become better off for it. So one, competition is no reason to do a thing. Two, don't build a prototype until you have a customer interested in your idea of a value. And once you've got a customer that's interested in it, then you can build a prototype. And again, a prototype or an MVP is something that is barely usable. And then you just iterate from there. What's valuable for the customer? What should we add? And the customer usually doesn't know, but you can at least you have a customer to play with to figure out, okay, what's we have now built something that's useful to the customer. Okay, what can we add that would be a value add? And that's usually how I think about it. I'm just like a tech, yeah, sure, okay, yeah, technically we do some tech, but it's mostly marketing and sales and understanding people and trying to solve their problems because that's valuable to them and we want to help people and that's generally that boils down to that. Um, and how I think about things, I guess.
I can be full and I can like do my outro.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
All right then.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye. As you can see, Max has a wonderful journey up until now, full with a lot of fails, and they actually bring up a lot of lessons for him. And he has been literally in the tech space for 21 years now. That is such a long period of time, and I would surely say that he's a senior and knows what his craft is all about. And we should all be like him, proactive and trying to learn. His literal main hobby is learning. I kind of want to be like him right now. So, if any of you want to be a guest on this podcast, go on our Instagram or comment on the video, and I would surely even make up a type form or whatever so that you can fill this out and I would get a notification and bring you over. As always, you can subscribe and like to help me with engagement, and yeah, see you.